It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
And great to have you with us on this Thursday edition of the show. Sam Yarnell will be by a little later on in the program for Contender Pretender, Week 5 in the NFL edition of that. Odds and ends, Thursday night football, the NHL season about to get started. At least one game, a couple of teams. Robert Littal, Black Sports Online, will drop by as well. We'll get his thoughts on the top stories of the week. But the top story to start out the show today is with this guy. That's not Sam Yarnell. That's David Aardsma, former MLB reliever who hangs out with us on the show for the second straight day. How about that? I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
You never bring me on for football. I didn't even know hockey was this close to starting. That's insane.
Well, you don't have a team in Phoenix anymore, so you're kind of out of luck there. Yeah. And we don't talk about football because we got a million people that we could talk about football with. We only got one David Aardsma, one former MLB reliever who can hang out with us on the show and talk about what has been a wild card round. Only one series still going. That's the Mets and Brewers. We'll get to that coming up in about 10 minutes. But I want to start with the American League. Tigers oust the Astros. And, I mean, look, Tigers are a buzzsaw. They're playing great baseball. I'll talk about them and what this means for them going forward and whether what they're doing is sustainable. But I got to ask about the Astros, who see their season come to an end. And it leaves me wondering if we're looking at sort of the end of an era for this group. You know, Bregman becomes a free agent.
Yes.
They have to take a look sort of inward and say, all right, what do we have to do to be able to sort of rally this thing and get it back to a level where we're winning games in the postseason? This early exit for them. What do you make of what we saw over the last couple of days in Houston?
Well, without a doubt, they're going to have some questions, right? Bregman's been a big part of this team for a long time, but I feel like we've heard this story before when Correa was coming up and Correa ended up leaving with free agency, and then they end up finding players out of nowhere, and this organization keeps picking players up from the minor leagues that fill in the gaps, and that's the thing they need to be doing, is going and still finding those players, so believing in that player development system that they're going to have guys and fill in. But I love players like Tucker, Pena, McCormick. They've found the right players that can come up. I don't think this is the end of an era. I think it's a little bit of that downslope where they're just redefining themselves. They got to stay healthy on the starting pitching staff. They've got the back end of the bullpen that is one of the best, very best in baseball, and they paid a lot of money for it. It's funny how that's the spot where they've really kind of failed in this last game, where Presley, who's one of the very best ever in the playoffs, and Josh Hader, it's one of the best relievers I've ever seen pitch, most dominant for a long time. These guys are just both also in that little stretch where they're struggling, where they got to find those guys and kind of keep it rolling.
What did you think of A.J. Hinch bringing in Jackson Jobe yesterday in that spot?
I mean, it's pretty incredible what he has been able to do. How he's been able to pull the strings. You know, there was also a spot where I believe he left in Torkelson and had Ibanez on deck, pulled him, brought in Torkelson, you know, when Josh Hader came in, and just left Torkelson and then brought in Ibanez later on, and then he ended up getting the big hit. And it's pretty incredible the type of moves he's been able to make and how he's just pulling the right string at the right time. But again, that's what happens when you know your team and you know exactly what you have. And it's Derek Skubal and a whole bunch of wild mess, whatever it is, throw a bunch against the wall and make it work.
Is this sustainable? Can they win a World Series like this? I know we're talking about this magical run. Could this really happen?
It's working. It's working. Again, you beat the Astros. It's working. So if you do that against, go out against the Yankees or go out, maybe if they get the Yankees in the ALCS, if they go out against the Guardians and can pull this off, and as long as Derek Skubal makes enough starts, right, and he wins those starts, all you have to do is win a crazy game like this, and you're good. But in all reality, I can't imagine this type of setup keeps working. At some point, one reliever is going to fail, and another is going to fail, and it's just going to be a little bit too much. But man, I can't argue with it. And at the same time, like I said, he knows his team.
The Orioles have lost 10 straight postseason games. They're gone from the postseason early again after losing 2 straight at home to the Kansas City Royals. Was it just a bad matchup? Is it that this group needs more seasoning? What's missing in Baltimore right now?
I think it's a good matchup. I actually thought this was a great matchup. Obviously a 1-0 game, 2-1 game. At the same time, this has been a team whose hitting has been one of the worst in baseball since the All-Spring. And they just continued it. And they got bad. It's really bad in September, but they continued a bad offensive side. The starting pitching will be okay. They got enough guys there. Their bullpen is definitely down. They don't have guys at the end of the ball game. They don't have guys in the middle that can just dominate. They should get better next year coming up. And it's just, they need veteran leadership. They need a veteran. They need a Salvador Perez. They need something like that. That's why Johnny Gomes kept going around team to team to team and kept finding himself in the World Series, because that veteran leadership is what they're missing in the lineup.
What does it all mean for the next round now? You obviously like the Guardians when it comes to taking on the Tigers. You know, a lot of experience. Those two teams know each other plenty well, playing in the same division. It feels like, though, to me, I don't want to sound, Yankee-centric here, because everybody knows I'm a Yankee fan. This thing is set up for the Yankees to go to the World Series right now when you look at the 4 teams remaining in this bracket in the American League.
When you started this all off, if the Yankees were playing craps and they were betting, this is exactly how they would bet. I love the Royals matchup for the Yankees. Again, the Royals are a good team, but it's not like they're steamrolling. Nah. And it's not like they had this crazy September where they're just on a high and playing great baseball and don't know what to do. They're a very good team. And at the same time, the Yankees can now just kind of flow and play good baseball. It's kind of like the Yankees, Royals, and the Yankees and Twins. That's only a better matchup you could ever hope for if you see the Twins coming to town. And so it's one of those deals. If I'm a Yankee fan, this is a perfect spot. I can match up really well with this team. At the same time, Detroit and the Guardians, they know each other. Guardians have had the best of them all year. But anytime you have a team that's so hot, it evens out.
The rest versus rust. We only got about 30 seconds here, but we've seen teams like the Yankees in this position. We saw what happened to the Dodgers last year, the Braves last year, all that rest.
And I say this, though, with the
Shrug
Astros
emoji.
last year.
Yeah.
The Astros figured out a way to make it work. Hey, if you can keep your team up and keep them going through those couple off days at home, that's the thing. Some teams have figured it out, some teams haven't.
You think the Yankees beat the Royals, though, right?
I do think the Yankees beat the Royals.
So I'm blaming you if they don't, since now you just...
you should. Me, no one else. Definitely not Aaron Boone.
Exactly.
Don't blame him at all.
No. He's usually a reliever, but he's starting with us today. David Aardsma doing a great job on Major League Baseball. We'll come back, talk about the Mets-Brewers, the only wild card series still going, the Padres steamrolling the Braves, the Dodgers, and a whole bunch more. It's Sports Wrap. All right, coming up in 10 minutes, we'll be paid a visit by Sam Yarnell, NFL Week 5 Contender Pretender. Robert Littal, Black Sports Online, will hang out with us in about 20 minutes, get some thoughts with him on the top stories of the week in sports. What are they saying in L.A. about Jim Harbaugh through the first 4 weeks of the NFL season? We'll let Robert tell us about that. We are rejoined by our friend David Aardsma, who's usually the mid-reliever guy on the show. Today he's starting. He gets a spot start. He's the opener. He's the opener. Gets an inning or two to start the show today. All right, Mets-Brewers, the only wild card series still going, David. Mets had their opportunity. I mean, up 3-1 in that game, mid to late innings. Maton comes in, gives it up. Jackson Chourio continues to shine in this series despite his one defensive gaffe in Game 1 after making a great play in left field just moments earlier. We go to a Game 3 in Milwaukee, winner take all. What do you see?
Man, I see the great series, and this is fun to watch. I love Game 3s, and I wish there were more Game 3s that we in the other series. Yeah, but this is the only one we're getting, and I'll say what it's a wonderful one we're getting to. It's the same kind of thing as the Tigers. The Mets are hot, playing really good baseball. They're rolling right in that first game and dominate the Brewers the first game. And then the Brewers are able to fight back. And that's the thing those other teams weren't able to do, is find that little energy, that little bit of extra against a hot team. And where it comes from is that rookie, Jackson Chourio. I mean, he is just whole world. And there's another Jackson we'll be talking from the other series too. It was a nice little rookie doing pretty well. But this is exactly what the Brewers needed. Like, again, this is a good team where they have the veteran players, they've got young players, they've got Jackson Churro, who is just playing out of his mind, batting 500, 3 RBIs in this series, but seems to be finding himself in a big situation just constantly and coming through. Big hit, big home run. Yes, he made a defensive error, but at the same time, he comes up and it comes up big with the bat. And that's what these other teams need. But I love this series because the Brewers are a very good baseball team, overlooked by a lot of people because of the division, and just other teams are just so much better when the Dodgers and the Phillies and the records and everything. But don't mark these guys out. They are a very well put together team, well coached, come up through the organization. Everything about them is ready for this.
Yeah, Mets and Brewers will own the stage on Thursday, obviously, with no other wild card series still going on. Braves and Padres. I mean, again, Padres, much like the Tigers, came in playing really well as we entered the postseason. You mentioned Jackson, this one being Jackson Merrill, and it just looked like to me look, it is amazing the Braves were even able to make the playoffs with everything they had to overcome this year. And I'm not trying to say there's consolation or moral victories or anything like that, but just to even get to the postseason with all that team has gone through, I think they're going to be fine long term. But this is about the Padres. And, this group that has really coalesced, especially in the second half of the year, David.
There's no doubt. And that's the thing is this story is about the Padres. Let's still hit the Braves about this. They've gone through everything. So many issues, so many problems. Really, Ozuna, the only player being able to consistently hit and hitting, did an incredible job. But at the same time, they limped into the playoffs. They barely made it in, and then they really struggled. Game 1, Game 2, they tried to make that comeback, tried to catch back up, and it was a little too late. And this Padres team is a very good team, and that's the thing. You don't want to get this team rolling. You don't want this team to get that energy and get that excitement and believe in themselves. They already had that belief system, but once you go out and you beat the Braves, and then you're rolling into that second round of the playoffs, this team really quickly is going to start believing themselves a lot more than some other teams, and believe they can beat the Dodgers, right? Believe they can beat the Phillies and go in and dominate this National League side. And I've got no doubt they can. Now, with Musgrove going down and having forearm tightness in this game, it's not just a big hit for them now, it's a big hit for them next series. That's where you're really going to see this. Is now you have to bump guys up. Now you have to figure out a Detroit style of thing, maybe throw a bunch against the wall. Relievers are really going to get hurt by this. And that's where you saw in this game, the relievers start to struggle once he was out of the ball game. And you saw a couple holes there towards the end of the ball game, and that's where if you're the Dodgers, you're the Phillies, you're looking at this Padres team saying, okay, who else you got now? I know we know who you were getting Game 1. Who do you got Game 2? And
you know what's interesting? I mean, talk about both teams winning in a trade situation. This Padres team traded away Juan Soto. And, the Yankees gave up Michael King and Kyle Higashioka. Look at the 2 wins. Michael King in Game 1, Kyle Higashioka in Game 2. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. Not many times has that ever happened where everybody wins. And at the end of the day, look at the Nationals who traded Soto, and then everybody's starting to win on this deal. And it's pretty amazing. It never happens.
No, and look, it's almost like in the NFL when the Lions and Rams made the deal, Stafford and Goff, and both franchises are winning in that situation. How do you match up the Padres with the Dodgers? Obviously, all the pressure in the world is on this Dodgers team, given what they invested in the offseason, the big year for Shohei Ohtani. All eyes will be on him. Everybody wants Yankees-Dodgers in the World Series. Let's be honest. Everybody wants to see that series. It'll be one of the highest-rated World Series in the last 25 years, without any question. Give me a summary of where you think the Dodgers are going into this NLDS.
I think there's a couple fan bases that probably don't want that. At the same time, yes, Major League Baseball, and I think baseball purists probably sit back and go, okay, this is something that baseball kind of needs right now. It would absolutely be perfect. The lining up, especially Shohei and Soto and Trout, all that stuff. But this series, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough on the Dodgers starting pitching staff. And that's really we got to figure out. Flaherty's going to be game one starter against Dylan Cease, pretty good starter for the Padres. But the Dodgers pitching staff, the starting pitching staff is really where my eyes are going to be going, is how do they handle that? Do they go in the standard Dodger way where they don't let them pitch more than 4 innings and they go straight to a bullpen?
God, I hope not. I really hope not.
It's going to be, though. You know it is. They created that setup, and they're going to continue it. It's so frustrating, and especially in a playoffs where we've seen pitchers go late in ball games, they're going to just completely destroy that and not let them face a lineup the third time. And it's so frustrating. At the same time, they figure out ways to win with it. I think they need to switch it a little bit, because we are starting to see starting pitchers dominate in the playoffs. Let them dominate.
All right. We know 3 series for the AL and NLDS. Give me real quick in 10 seconds. Yankees, Royals?
Yankees, Royals, Yankees win.
All right. Guardians and Tigers?
Ooh, Tigers.
All right. And Padres, Dodgers?
Game 7 is going to come down to Shohei coming in, pitching, closing it out.
All right.
Dodgers.
We're coming back. Much more to do on this Thursday. Don't go anywhere. Thanks, David. We continue on this Thursday edition of SportsWrap. Still to come, Robert Littal, Black Sports Online. We haven't talked to him in a few weeks. I texted him. On Wednesday, I said, we haven't forgotten you, don't worry. It's just start of NFL season. He'll join us. He's got a lot to say about the Antonio Pierce blow-up. I didn't even think it was a blow-up. I just thought it was him going kind of Bill Belichickian on with the media. Sam Yarnell, who hangs out with us on the show. All right, Sam. It is a Thursday edition of the show. I held it back one day. It is week 5 in the NFL. It is Contender, Pretender. All right, you go first. 3 contenders, 3 pretenders. Hit me with it.
All right, Jason, my first contender is the team that we all knew would establish themselves on this list after their win last week, the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, yes, that service academy style of football works. And like Jason and I talked about on the show this week, when they play their football at their best, right? That's not that Raiders game for sure, but when they're playing their best football like they did in that Bills game, I don't think there's a better team than the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL right now. That's not to say they're the best team week in and week out, because they're not. They don't always play their best football. But when they do, Jason, the Baltimore Ravens are unstoppable. And right now, as of last week, they're playing their best football. The Baltimore Ravens are number 1 on my list of contenders. My number 2? Just down the road, just down the BW Parkway, as those of us from the DMV know it, the Washington Commanders are a contender this season. That's right, folks. Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn have single-handedly brought this team to relevancy again. Wow, it shows you what getting rid of a Dan Snyder can do for your organization. Jaden Daniels is quickly proving to be the best quarterback from the most recent draft class. And as much as people were ready to give it to Caleb Williams, and he was a, plus 120 favorite to win the Rookie of the Year before the season started, Jaden Daniels came in quickly and showed you what a valuable quarterback really is in 2024. He's under center for the Commanders right now, and he's keeping them a contender, especially if that defense, led by Dan Quinn, can continue to play as well as they did against a dynamic offense in Arizona last week. The Washington Commanders have made their way onto my list of contenders this week. And my last one, it's an undefeated team. How could they not be contenders? The Minnesota Vikings. That's right. Sam Darnold. He's an MVP candidate this year, folks. He is playing lights out. I cannot talk enough about the coaching of the Minnesota Vikings. Kevin O'Connell is an offensive genius. Brian Flores has revitalized his career. And the Vikings are certainly a contender this season. All right, my pretenders. The Jets, the Cowboys, and the Eagles. That's right, 2 NFC East teams and an AFC East team. The Jets are just going through it right now. That's not to say that they couldn't back their way into a wild card spot in an AFC that looks like it's going to be injury riddled left and right when we're talking about the contending teams. But at the end of the day, the Jets are pretenders big picture. There's too much going wrong in that locker room. And also, by the way, over the last 25 games of his career, 25 games, not seasons worth. The last 25 games of Aaron Rodgers' career have been the single worst 25-game stretch of his entire career. This is not the Aaron Rodgers of old. Heck, it's not even the Aaron Rodgers they signed back 2 years ago. I can't get all the way there on the Jets this year. There's too much going wrong with that team. The Cowboys and Eagles, I don't even need to say anything else.
Here's what I'll say on the Jets, and I'll get to mine real fast because there's a reason I'll be able to go real fast through mine. I actually think the Jets are going to be one of those teams that kind of tinker and try and kind of massage this situation. And I'm more interested to see what the Jets are in week 12 than what they are after week 4. I think they'll be able to win enough games to sort of tread water. And I think there's going to be growth. I have to believe. And we saw it with Aaron Rodgers that last year in Green Bay with the Packers. Remember, all those rookies and trying to figure it out. It didn't work until the end of the season when that offense started to click. Plus, keep an eye on the Jets in making a move potentially for Davante Adams, who is asked out of Las Vegas with the Raiders. All right, real quick. My contender pretender. I got 2 of yours. I'm in the same spot as you. Washington and Baltimore have to be on this list as contenders. Minnesota's absolutely.
I was expecting.
Absolutely. No, without question. Where I differ, and it's not that I don't think the Vikings are. I think that's easy. That's like shooting fish in a barrel. To me, the Lions. I think the Lions, because I can make the argument the Lions aren't even playing their best football yet, and they're 3-1. And it's a very quiet, easy 3-1 for them out of the gate. For my pretenders, I actually have 4 teams. I have the Seahawks. They're pretenders. Sorry. Last week was a dose of reality. And of all the undefeateds, they were the weakest. And then I've got 3 other teams. It's the rest of the NFC East outside of Washington. They're all pretenders. They're all pretenders. Sorry, I'm going 4 teams this week. I'm breaking the rules. Because everybody outside of Washington in that division has not impressed me. I don't look at any of them. Right now, my job is to tell you right now who is a contender and pretender. Is anybody else in that NFC East outside of Washington a contender, Sam Yarnell?
No, they are not. Not even close.
Thank you. Not even my beloved Giants. That is contender, pretender. Sam will rejoin us for odds and ends at the end of the show. And we didn't even really get into the whole Davante Adams thing, Sam, but we will get into it a little bit with Robert Littal of Black Sports Online, who joins us coming up in a couple minutes. Get thoughts with him on all the top stories of the week in sports. What do they think of Jim Harbaugh in Los Angeles through the first 4 weeks? We'll talk about that, the Davante Adams situation. Antonio Pierce. Robert Littal believes that Antonio Pierce might be a little bit overmatched with what's going on right now out there in Las Vegas, or here where I am in Las Vegas with the Raiders. So we'll get to it with him on that as well. Also, LeBron James, Bronny James. Is this thing just going to be a circus in LA all year? Because it's training camp and it already is starting to feel that way. So we'll get some thoughts with him on that as well. Sam will rejoin us, as I said, a little later on in the show for odds and ends on the NHL and the NFL Thursday night game. Lots more to do on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. This Thursday edition of Sports Wrap continues. It's been a while since we talked to this guy. Too long. A few weeks. And that's my fault. Get so bogged down with the NFL. That's not a bad thing. I'm not banging on the NFL for that reason. It's just, it sucks all the oxygen out of the room. Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online, hangs out with us on the show. It really does. Like it starts and everything else stops. And there really is nothing like that, other than maybe the NCAA men's basketball tournament for that, 3 weeks or whatever, where the NCAA men's basketball tournament starts, and now the women's tournament, and everything just stops. No work gets done, nothing. It's kind of that way when it comes to the NFL, but for 17, 18 weeks, 21, 22 weeks, if you count the postseason, it just feels like everything shuts down.
It's because it's so short. So you look up and it's we're 4 weeks in, people are on the bye. You're like, a quarter of the season is basically, over. So I feel like there's an anxiety, I would say, standpoint with the NFL because you're waiting on the next game. Yeah. It's like, and then you're worried about the last game. And it's like each game is like a mini Super Bowl. And it's like, I think it builds up a certain thing. Whereas with, like, say, Major League Baseball or basketball, there's so many games. It's like, it's hard to get invested in every single game because there's so many. But like a tournament, like you said, of course, it's one and done. So you're invested, as well. So I think I would tell the NFL to stop adding games because the more you add, the less it seems, people will be invested.
Yeah, these Monday Night Football double headers, and it is a bit much. It feels like the first 4 weeks of this NFL season, as we get ready for Week 5, starting on Thursday night, it already feels like a half a season's been played. There's already been so many storylines to it. You're in LA, so I'll ask you about the Chargers. What are the early reviews on Jim Harbaugh there?
I do feel like they feel like the culture has changed, that it's a more winning culture, a more positive culture. The only problem is the injuries are the same.
Can't keep the quarterback healthy. Who the hell cares about culture?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to win a football game with a quarterback that's limping around and no left tackles, no right tackles, no edge rusher. I don't think, Vince Lombardi could have. And the thing is, they could have won that game against the Chiefs. They're right there, right, to the end. So I think there's some positivity that, if they can get healthy, that the Jim Harbaugh era is looking in the right direction. The question is, there are also been a little whispers about, Justin Herbert, just some little bitty, whispers like, the same ones you start hearing with Trevor Lawrence, like last year now, or loud screams. Like, is this guy, really the guy? And is he going to be the guy, long term for the Chargers?
I think he's the guy if he's healthy. You just can't stay healthy. As much as we like to talk about Tua and the head injuries and all of that stuff, Herbert's got a problem from a different standpoint, and that's staying healthy with all these different types of nagging injuries, and you can't help your team. Yeah, you can't help your team if you're not on the field. And you got to remember, he wasn't Harbaugh's guy. I mean, Harbaugh took that job, and he inherits Justin Herbert. It does make you kind of wonder what the future looks like for that franchise if Harbaugh decides he wants to pull the plug on Justin Herbert.
And you got to remember, Harbaugh, had Colin Kaepernick. He has a certain type of quarterback in Michigan. I don't know if Justin Herbert fits that mold. I mean, obviously he's very talented, but just knowing Jim Harbaugh's track record, like I said, there's just some whispers that, we're going to go through this year, see how it goes, and maybe Harbaugh is evaluating everybody, and then, maybe in the next year or two, it wouldn't be shocking to some people to see massive changes.
Have you been following college football?
Oh, absolutely.
It's so different with the expanded playoff because you get a team like Notre Dame losing early on in the year to, I don't know, Central Michigan or whatever the hell it is.
Northern
Illinois. Oh, it doesn't really matter. It's Northern Illinois. But they lose a game to Northern Illinois, and everybody's like, well, that's it. But it's like in this new era of college football, they go and beat Louisville last week. And it's not just a Notre Dame conversation I want to have, but just in terms of the ability to sort of rebound where those devastating losses that felt like they were playoff killers for some teams, it isn't the case anymore. LSU, they had a loss, and all of a sudden at the end of the year we're going to look, and there's still going to be a lot of really good teams making the playoffs that may have lost games early in the year.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I'm in the minority or the majority, but I think that's a great thing.
I agree.
I want to see Notre Dame in the playoffs. I want to see both Alabama and Georgia possibly play again in the playoffs. if Ohio State and Oregon is going to play, one of them are going to lose, but they're both teams that, obviously Ohio State, but they're both teams I want to see in the playoffs. I don't like a situation where if you lose one game and you lose it by a point or you just have a slip up, that's the end, because to me, these are great college football teams that I want to watch in December. I don't want a month of December where, it's just nothing there, until the bowl games, until the thing. So I don't know. Like I said, I know other people don't like it. I particularly love it.
I only got about 40 seconds left in this segment. We're going to hold you over, but give me a thought on sort of the reconstitution of the Pac-12.
Well, I mean, at least we have something to watch at night here in LA, Like, I can't say I'm, any of those teams really move the needle for me, but
Gonzaga's not going to do it for you.
I mean, maybe they'll win an NCAA basketball championship finally. I don't know, but no. I mean, but like I said, I am glad that they're trying to stay together, because you don't want to. Maybe in 20 years, those teams end up being juggernauts. So. We just got to make it those 20 years.
Yeah, really. I thought for sure the Pac-12 was done, but they're not going to go down without a fight. Robert Littal is going to join us. He had some interesting comments regarding Antonio Pierce that I want to ask him about. We'll talk about that, Bronny James, LeBron, a whole bunch more. Sports Wrap continues on a Thursday. Don't go anywhere. Sam Yarnell returns for Odds and Ends coming up in 10 minutes. Get some thoughts on the NHL, the Thursday night NFL game as well. Hanging out with our friend Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online, giving us a couple of segments today on the show. All right, Robert. Antonio Pierce. You caught my attention and got back into my sort of headspace.
That's my job.
That's how you do it. You got my attention yesterday when Antonio Pierce had a press conference, and they're asking him about Davante Adams, which I'll ask you about here in a second. The Las Vegas Raiders talking about trading him potentially. Now he's got a hamstring injury. He's not going to play for a couple of weeks. They're already telling that to potential trade partners. And you got Antonio Pierce getting grilled by the media. And your tweet on X made it sound like he was really popping off. He's really not happy with the situation. And I went and watched it, and I didn't think it was that over the top in terms of his reaction and just trying to sort of deflect, as coaches and politicians are wont to do. I don't know. What did you see that made you think that maybe Antonio Pierce is not the right fit for Las Vegas?
My issue was you can't have a head coach of a professional football league liking, memes on Instagram, about players wanting to be traded. Like, to me, I just can't fathom a professional coach when there's so much to do. I know how much stuff there's to do in the NFL. Scrolling his phone and seeing a meme from NFL Centel or whatever,
hit the heart button.
Ball Sack Sports or whatever, saying, "Oh, Davante Adams want this," and say, something, I'm gonna like that. And the interviewer gave him out because we all hit it by accident. This happened as accident. We're on the Cleveland or wherever you say. We're on to Houston or wherever we're going. And I'm like, you're not Bill Belichick. Stop cosplaying Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick wasn't on InstaFace, worried about stuff like that. And it just seems to me that he's a bit overwhelmed with the job. Not that, he's not a good guy or anything like that. It's just the first adversity that he's had, he's not handling it very well. And there's a history with the Raiders of them pulling the hook, pretty quick. And there were people that thought that he was inexperienced and he wasn't really ready, for the job. And it wasn't that he was angry or mean or anything. I'm like, you're a professional coach. Why are you on Instagram? Why are you battling Davante Adams on Instagram? It just doesn't seem to me at the moment that he has maybe the temperament to be a head coach in the NFL.
It's never felt to me like Davante Adams was right for that situation, though. It never, from day one, it's never felt like Davante Adams was right for the Raiders.
He wanted the money. That's simple. And Derek Carr, he has a weird fascination with Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what it is, but the Raiders didn't have that fascination with Derek Carr. And if you're a Saints fan, you understand why. It's a lot of, up and down. But when you go for the money, to me, Devontae Adams is not helping the situation. He's always complaining. I watched that thing on Netflix. He's always talking about getting out. He doesn't really seem like a team guy. Seems like a me guy. And if your most talented player is a me guy, I can understand trying to get rid of him. But as a coach, you have to be strong, with that. You can't, some people gave up on the game. No, who was it? Either you're going to say it or you're not going to say it. And I think it's just a little too much tippy-toeing, around. I mean, like I said, if that's Bill Parcells, that's, Bill Belichick, Randy Moss got out of line one time and he was in Tennessee. And Randy Moss had 27 touchdowns. Not following what we're doing. You're out of here. No questions and no Instaface.
I'll tell you something. It's hard to tell a fan base you're giving up after 4 weeks. And that's essentially what the Raiders have done at 1-3. They've kind of told their fan base, we're going to part ways with our star wide receiver. There's already a lot of fans from visiting teams in that stadium right down the street from where we're broadcasting. It's going to be a whole lot more in there if this continues. Let me ask you something real quick, because I only got a couple minutes. Yeah. LeBron and Bronny. The more I'm watching this from afar, from 4 hours away and 250 miles, the more I'm getting the sense that this is going to be a sideshow all year. It's just going to be, as much as LA is already a circus, this thing's going to be a circus all year long.
Let me say this. As a father, it does warm my heart a bit, because as a dad,
give him a new baby and listen to him.
Yeah. Look at my baby. He's all grown up. We get to work together. We get to hang out together. I've given him an opportunity. He's not in jail. Or if you have a girl, she's not on the stripper pole. Like, as a father, your whole thing is to get your kids to like adulthood, where if they're a boy, they're not in jail, they didn't get shot. If it's a girl, she's not on the stripper pole and has 4 kids. And he's gotten Bronny to that under an amazing spotlight. Basketball standpoint, he's just going to be on the bench. There's nothing going to happen. He's not going to be a player. It's a feel-good story. From a basketball perspective, I think, like you said, it's nothing more than that. It's just
not a distraction.
That's kind of cool.
Not going to be a distraction.
He's the 15th man. I think he'll spend a lot of time in the G League. I think it'll fizzle out. Eventually, we'll just go back to Skip Bayless saying that LeBron is not clutch, and Stephen A. Smith is yelling at him about saying that, he still feels good. I mean, I think eventually it goes back to regular old LeBron, bashing. That's all. I think it's a cute story.
For the record, I did not have stripper pole on my bingo card for Thursday's edition of SportsWrap, but
I got 3 girls.
Stripper pole is.
I got responsibilities, Jason.
It's gonna wrap it up for me and Robert Littal. Hey, have yourself a wonderful weekend. All the best with the new baby.
Thank you so much.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Friday's show will include NASCAR, because if it's a NASCAR Friday, Sam Yarnell, what is it?
Pino Patino's here, Jason. Yeah. That's right.
That's right. NASCAR Friday. Patino. Make sure to check out SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available for you. All your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it, we are on all of them. Without any further delay, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Odds on the NHL. The regular season gets started in earnest with one game. And one game only. And Sam Yarnell is a huge fan of the NHL starting the season with just one game on Friday and one game on Saturday at the O2 Arena, not in London. No. But in Prague, in the Czech Republic. Sam Yarnell, the NHL season has arrived for 2 teams and 2 teams only.
While the other 28 play meaningless preseason games for 3 days. Yeah, Jason and I were talking off the air about this, and my personal opinion is, I know baseball did it with the Korea series, and listen, I know that there is an element of all of this to growing the games, plural. It makes it so annoying for those of us who are back home trying to keep up with which games our teams are playing that actually matter and which games our teams are playing where you're going to see some 19-year-old who's going to be a fringe roster make in 3 years. It's very, 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 very tough to justify for me as a fan of the product that they're putting out there, especially when I have people who aren't fans of the product. I'm looking at you, Jason Page, saying, why are they playing an ocean away 4 days before the other teams are? I have no good justification. I don't think there is a good one. Hang on a second, though, because it is odds and ends. I do have some odds for you. You mentioned the Buffalo Sabres playing in Prague. I think this is the year the playoff drought ends. I'm betting my bet for this season is the Buffalo Sabres to make the playoffs at plus 164. I do think this is the season. I think it all turns around. But Jason, the big story in the NHL has to be Jeremy Swayman, right?
Contract dispute. Big contract dispute going on.
This is ridiculous. And there are so many layers to this onion between the very unique cap that the NHL has, and if you've never looked into how the hockey cap works, it's so much different than any other sport, and I strongly recommend you go look that up because I could not do it justice in trying to explain it. Here's the thing about Jeremy Swayman. He's a young goalie. He's done really well in Boston. No one really knows if he's really talented or it's the Boston goalie system, because every goalie that goes to Boston has massive amounts of success that they haven't had anywhere else. Anyway, Jeremy Swayman was what's called a restricted free agent this offseason. That means he was a free agent, but the only team that could negotiate with him was the Boston Bruins. So there was this ongoing contract negotiation the entirety of the offseason, back and forth and back and forth. Everyone was quiet about it. The Bruins front office, Swayman's camp, they were all quiet about it. And then we got close to the season and they still didn't have a contract together. So everyone started asking questions. Then the Bruins GM said he wasn't going to say anything. Then the Spittin' Chicklets podcast came out of nowhere. They got involved. They said there was an offer on the table that Swayman wanted, that the Bruins came back and lowballed him 6 ways to Sunday about. Anyway, bottom line is this, and if you need more coverage on this story, my good, close, personal friend Andrew Fantuccio does a great job covering the Bruins for Boston Hockey Now. I strongly recommend you go check out his coverage. That said, this is a mess. The Bruins are going to start the season with their backup goalie, and a team that should be contending for a Stanley Cup is lowballing their best goaltender and having him go out on social media through his agent to explain all of the differences in contract disputes. It is a mess, but it's appointment TV for us NHL fans.
Anything else? Oh, there's an NFL game on Thursday night. I just can't be bothered. I can't be bothered. Thursday night NFL game, week 5. Get started with the Falcons at home against the Buccaneers. I just wish you could have talked for another minute. I was very content to sit here with my rainbow straw in my mouth. Buccaneers plus 1.5 on the road in Atlanta. 43.5 the total as of the time we are taping this segment. What do you say?
Falcons have played good football this year. They're playing better football than their record indicates. I'd take the Falcons in this situation. I don't know about laying the points. I don't know about the total, Jason. What I do know is there's a prop out there for these two quarterbacks. Total combined yards, 472.5. And I love the over.
Oh, I love the over too. I love absolutely.
The over.
Let's get in. Let's get in together.
I don't think there's
that.
a bet that we've talked about on this show that I've loved more than Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield to throw for 500 yards. My goodness, the book might as well become a bank the way they're going to print me that money.
I like it. I mean, we should do that together. I think you and I should ride on that together. I like it. Just got a little money in from one of my MSNBC columns. We can put it there. I like it. I'm going to go Falcons -1.5 as well. It's going to do it for us. Thanks to Robert Littal, David Aardsma, Sam Yarnell. Page versus the Prince on Friday. We'll see you then.